Hey everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really pretty card. This is actually inspired by a card that I made with the Peaceful Poppies, so I wanted to update it. This used the subtle folders, the stitched rectangles, all of which are retired. So we are making this new version, which is adorable, equally cute, and I used a couple different things for this. It's pretty simple. We're actually going to use 3 markers to do our colors. We are using inked and tiled, which I love. This is such a pretty stamp set. I know there's like a zillion flower stamp sets, but I think this one is really nice because there's so much you can do with it. Also because of the distressed look of the flowers. And I really love the fonts and the sentiments in this one. However, I wanted something longer to go across, kind of similarly to what I did on this one. So I brought in happy labels, Life is Better with You. You could also, if you wanted to, depending on what you want to do, you could do maybe a congratulations. You totally deserve it. You could even change because totally you could take that out and just do because you deserve it, and you could stamp it in pieces. So lots of different things you could do for this. Happy birthday would be also a nice one, but I kind of like that slim sentiment going across there. So definitely different ones you could do. Even Love and Miss You would be nice. This would also and the nice part about this was the thinking of you. I use this as a sympathy card. So you could also make this a sympathy card as well. You could just do love you and miss you, and then on the inside write something nice. So we're going to do this card. Not a whole lot to it. It's very simple, but there are a couple steps. So again, I have my stamp mounted. We are going to use Pretty Peacock. Let's see if I can remember. Calypso Coral and Sweet Sorbet. Yep, look at that. So we're going to use these 3. Now you might notice a difference for some of these because they did change the markers. So you can see these 2 are the same. And this one is a newer marker. So just in case, I'm going to show you just a couple little things. So the caps you can see are already, this one is much smaller. If you can see that. So they did improve the tip of these markers. They probably don't look very different, but the barrel is obviously a different, right here, different size. They don't have them color coded anymore, which that part kind of stinks, but what are you going to do? But the brush tip has changed significantly. It's a lot bigger and it has a lot nicer of a more brush-like quality when you're using it as a brush, if that makes sense. So if you're doing anything where you're maybe freehanding something, I think it's going to give you a nice look. But let me show you the bottom, because that is actually, to me, the more impressive side. So we'll go back to this so you can see what I mean. So these, I'm going to take these off. You can see this one before was really fine. It's supposed to be kind of like more like a pen, but it was really difficult to get it to write quite a lot of the time. So they actually changed this. So it's more of a felt tip to it, if you can see here, and it actually writes amazingly. It's such a great pen. If you journal, if you do scrapbooking and you need to write stuff into your scrapping, this is a great pen for that. So I think it is a huge and well-deserved and long-awaited improvement, but I know everybody's different. So just a couple tips on that. So the new markers will all be coming out in this style. Again, the cap is shorter. That's how you can tell. The barrel of it is longer. It definitely has a different fine point end, but it still does have the fine point mark and the broad mark, which I think is really nice. So hopefully you'll find that useful. The other thing we're going to use basic gray we have for our sentiment. I also have one of the, I believe these are called the Essentials embossing folders, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see, I'm going to pull out the other 2. This one is kind of like a cross-hatched matte kind of pattern. So if you can see from, oh, we should take this out of the, I always protect these, especially when they're white, because you just never know, but it has like a cross-hatched pattern. It's very pretty, and it's probably the closest to the subtles, which it's not really close, but it's a very subtle folder. So we're going to be using that, but this actually comes in a 3-pack. The other one is more of like a starbursty flower kind of a pattern, which I actually used this when I did the sunburst, or maybe it's called rays of light card. If you scroll back onto my videos, you'll definitely be able to find it. And then the other one is dots, which is really, really cute. I use this for the I'm trying to think, the crushes, when I made the crush grapefruit and orange crush cards. You can go back and see that, but they emboss really nicely, but you get all 3 of them together, so that's pretty nice. And then the other thing we're going to be using is the deckled rectangles. Now, you might notice there is no rectangle that size, okay? So what we actually did is it that one? Nope, it's the one bigger. So it's the 3rd largest. Make sure I'm not telling you any stories. Yep, the third largest. And what I did is I actually did some partial die cutting. So we made it thinner than it needed to be. So I'll show you how to do that as well. I'm just going to keep this one out so I have it. And we'll get started. So let's put this on the side. So you have your base, and your base needs to be thick, white to be able to stand up the way you want it to. So if you're using regular white, it just does not stand up very well. It's extremely floppy, but the thick stands up really, really well. So that's going to be our base. And oops, I'm going to need one other piece here. I didn't realize. And then I do have a piece of regular white for the embossing. I have a little scrap, and let's see, is this going to be large enough? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Yeah, might have to fiddle with it for this one. Excuse me. This is just the scrap for the sentiment. So we're going to do our flower first. I'm going to set this on the side as well. Let's see. It's going to be, actually, you know what? I don't want to do that because then I can't show you how to partial die cut. So that was not very smart on my part. Let me just grab a piece of larger cardstock. Sorry, I was definitely ill prepared for this. Thought I was all good to go. All right, here we go. So this is just another piece of cardstock. Okay, so pretend like you didn't see that, because what we're going to do is we're going to stamp it, and then we're going to use the die, and we're going to die cut this out. So what you're going to do, so make sure it's nice and centered, is I tend to start with the dark here. So you're going to start with the dark, you're going to add, no, I'm sorry, you start with the light and you're going to add the dark because it'll kind of fade, because you don't really want to cross-contaminate your markers, if that makes sense. You don't want to get dark on the light. So you're going to begin by using your Calypso Coral, and you're going to just spread the ink. And if it gets onto the stem, it's okay because our stem color is darker. Spread the ink onto that, going all the way to the bottom. And I know you're not going to be able to see this, but the ink, basically, you can see it's shiny. It comes right up to the edge. Then you're going to take your Sweet Sorbet, again, brush tip. Now, when I do this, I tend to work kind of backwards, upside down, because it's a little bit easier. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bring it in from the base. It doesn't have to be exact. Just kind of spread it out. Because typically, if you look at a flower, it does have its more concentrated color near the base or near the stem. And you could do this totally different. You could also change colors for this. It'd be pretty simple. So there's that part. And then we're going to come in with our pretty peacock. And I'm going to just be gentle here at the stem so I can just cover up the part that I see, because I did overlap just a little bit. So I just cover that up. And I tend to find that me working at an angle and kind of going down is no way I'm going to get it into it. So I kind of go down when I do it. Okay, and then cover your whole image. And if you wanted to use more than one color for this, you could. You could also do Pretty Peacock and Lost Lagoon. They're pretty nice. They coordinate very well together. All right, so now you can see your ink on there. And what did I do? Here it is. Is that the one? No? Oh, here it is. Oh, my heavens. Okay. All right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to do the Darth Vader. You're going to huff onto your stamp just to reactivate the ink. And then you're going to press. I feel like I just smudged it a little bit, but we'll find out in a second. You could also, if you're not really good at huffing, you could very, very, very lightly fill a Stampin' spritzer. You could do this even with the shimmer paint that we used to have if you wanted to. You could fill it with water and really lightly mist it. Will reactivate your ink as well. So whatever's easier. And we're going to lift. So there you can see what it looks like. So a little bit different. Always looks pretty though. Okay, so there's that part. So I'm just going to set this aside and we're going to do our sentiment. And I'm just going to do Love and Miss You, because that's another pretty nice sentiment. Okay. All right. And we're going to do that with the basic gray ink, because this is going to need time to dry anyway. So, all right. And this is just a scrap from when I trim my cardstock, so it doesn't need to be a specific piece that you cut. I'm sure you have a zillion of these laying around. Nice. All right, that's all we need for that. Put this over here as well. Okay, so we have that. So basically the only thing we need to do is emboss this piece, and we're going to use our embossing folder for that and do the partial die cut. Now I want to explain to you how to do the partial die cut. So just give me 1 second. This is cut at 4 by 5 1/4. So it's going to layer onto this with a border. But I will tell you one thing. Sometimes when you emboss things, it can almost stretch them out just a little bit. So if you ever notice that that's a problem, what you could do is you can emboss it as a full size, like 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then trim it down. So if you notice that happens to you, it's not just you, it does happen. So I'm going to pop this through my Big Shot. So I have this, and I'll show you this in a second, but I want to show you how to do the die cutting in the meantime. So we're going to set that up over here. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of line this up where you want it. Depends, again, for your border. Where's my original card so you can see? I kind of put mine pretty close to the edge. It just really depends on how you want. If you want a little more space, that's also fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm holding it in place with a piece of Post-it tape, okay? So this is going to be our first pass, and then I'll show you the second part. And honestly, even if you want to, you could use this little strip for your sentiment or this little strip because you're going to have some pieces left over. But just remember, you don't want to cut a piece to make this. I'm sure you'll find one somewhere. So then what we're going to do is we're going to slide this over just so it kind of frames out our piece. So I want it pretty close. As you can see, I did it pretty tight here. If you want it farther over, that's totally fine. But what you're going to do is you're going to slide. Now on this one, it's very, very easy because there is literally nothing here to recut. So you're not going to have a problem. But if for some reason you were doing one where you didn't want to cut another portion of it, what you'll do is you'll put this in, and I'll show you what I mean. Let me just set this down and tape it in place. What you'll do is you would put this in, and you would only put the plate so it cuts this portion here. But since this is already cut, it's not going to affect it. And the other thing is you want to try as well, when you have a square or a rectangular, something that has hard lines, you want to try not to line it up straight like this because it's a lot of pressure from the die cutting machine going straight on this, and it can start to warp your dies. So if you're able, you want to try to angle it just a little bit. Okay, so just to keep that in mind. So again, since we're only cutting just this part here, this part's already cut, there's literally nothing here that can be cut. I'm going to put it in just a little bit askew. Okay, so I'm going to run this through the die cut machine. And then this is what it looks like. Let me just show you. So it literally only cuts off that little piece there, which again, if you wanted to, the way this ended up being, you could use this as a little sentiment piece. So got just this little nippy piece here. So I might keep this for something. You never know. And then you have your little custom die cut piece from your deckled rectangles. And then let me show you the other piece we have here. This is the embossed piece. Okay, so remember, when you're doing this, if the Stampin' Up is facing up, that is the part that's embossed. Okay, if you did it the other way, this is debossed. So you could use either side, but if you're ever wondering, how come I'm embossing something and it's not showing up, like say if you were doing a piece of DSP and you wanted it to stick up towards you, you want the part that is facing the Stampin' Up will be sticking up. So up, up. Hopefully that helps you just a teeny bit. And just move all these plates out of the way. And oh, Jack is very disappointed with this. He thinks this is the most boring video he's ever listened to. That dog. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to attach this. So that's going to fit on there, 4 by 5 1/4. We're going to pop this part up with dimensionals, and then we're going to kind of do some partial dimensionals on this because part of it I'm going to glue to this, and then part of it I'm going to pop up. But I am going to also trim it off just a little bit because I don't want it to be huge. So we're going to begin with some liquid glue. When you have anything that's embossed, you want to make sure that you, sorry about that. You want to make sure that you really give it a good amount of glue because it kind of needs to get into the nooks and crannies. So we're going to line that up. Just like so. All right. Then we're going to put some dimensionals on here. See, I'm kind of down to the bits and pieces. I was creating a video yesterday and realized I have completely run out of white dimensionals. I only have black ones left, which are fine, except when you're using a white card, sometimes they can come through and create a little bit of shadowing, and it kind of looks like you might have smudges or spots on the inside. So that's kind of up to you. If you don't mind it, it's fine, but since this is all white, I'm going to just go just like that. I'm going to just do it with what I have left. So just give these a little press to make sure they're in there. I'm going to pull all these off, and then I'll probably use that very last little piece for my sentiment. Again, it just depends. I am right-handed, which is probably why I center this to the left. You could do it the other way, though, if you prefer. The only thing, if you do that, you want to be mindful that you want to set your sentiment to the other side. So basically, your missue would be here. That way you could trim off to the left. So we're going to put that right about there. Looks good. If you wanted to, you could always go in with a little bit of Wink of Stella. However, remember, Wink of Stella will bleed inks, so you don't want to go onto any other color. So if you're doing the pink, you want to do the green separate if you wanted to color it in, or vice versa. Just be mindful of that. And then we're going to put this right here. So we're going to need some dimensionals right over here, which is probably going to equal this very last piece here. Let's see. Yep, that's about right. So I'm going to put this, where did I want it approximately? I was kind of cover a little bit there. I'm going to put it right here. Wow, talk about a perfectly length piece. And then I'm going to just put some liquid glue. You could trim this down just a teeny bit thinner, and I would like to, but I'm afraid if I do, I'm going to end up, I'm going to try. I'm going to say I'm going to end up trimming something wonky, but let's see if I can get it to work. Just going to try to take just a hair off of each side. We'll see. See if this works or not. Sometimes I get a little too overzealous and I end up cutting it and then it's like crooked or sideways or some other bit of wonked up. Let's see. Hopefully we don't ruin it. Oh, wow. That must have been because I was on camera this one time. Let's see if it's still going to fit over our... Oh, wow, that's perfect. Okay. Lucky me. All right, so I'm going to take the backing off of this. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here. Even if it goes over farther than I want to, it's okay. Just going to make sure that I hit it far enough. Oops. I feel like I am right on the edge of that. I think I went just a little bit high on there, but it's okay. And then I'm going to just grab my snips, open this, and cut straight just to trim it off there. So there you go. I hope you have found this video useful. Maybe you learned some new things about techniques that you didn't know prior to this. Who knows? Partial die cutting, a little bit maybe about the embossing folders. But I think these cards are really, really pretty. Again, you could do this in so many different shades. You could even do this just with the leaf image on there if you wanted to, like a couple different times. Cut it out, stamp it, or with the small flowers. This flower, you could use any of those sentiments. I also think the congratulations would be nice. It would just be a little bit shorter. So lots of fun things. And then again, if you're looking for a different type of sentiment, charming sentiments and happy labels are also two other really, really great choices. So which one do you prefer? Do you like this one with a little bit of the slimmer? Do you like the scripty? Is there a difference between the two? You can't even tell. You just came here because you like to hear me talk. Just kidding. That was a joke. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so very much for watching, for coming back. If you have a friend that you think would like to see this video, I would love for you to share it with them. If you haven't already, make sure that you click onto the like button, the subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications. And if you'd like to get any of these products, you can shop my online store, rachthestamper.stampinup.net. That may be changing because we have recently had an update, so I need to get my verbiage, which I'm probably going to be saying the wrong thing wrong, because you guys know how hard it is for me to change something I've been saying for like 7 years. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you have any questions or comments about this, please leave it in the comment section below down here, and I will link everything up so you can find how to make the measurements and everything for this card. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day.